Hi guys, welcome to this explainer. Today we're taking a really fascinating inside-out journey, starting deep inside the brain and moving all the way outward to our interactions with society to help you build a true self-mastery toolkit. We're going to be looking at the very foundation of how we function, how we process information, and how we actually connect with the world around us.
So, let me ask you, have you ever wondered what exactly makes some minds so remarkably powerful? Like, why do some people effortlessly influence their environment while staying totally resilient under insane pressure? I mean, think about it. Between the endless stream of notifications, the daily stress, and the sheer volume of misinformation we face, it's incredibly easy to feel overwhelmed. But here's the good news. Psychological science actually offers us a potent antidote to all this modern burnout and cynicism. By deeply understanding the science of the mind, we can actively reclaim our power and completely reshape our daily experience. Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover cultivating psychological power, neuroplasticity and habit loops, building mental fitness, positive psychology interventions, intellectual humility and resilience, and finally, the science of empathy.
Let's dive right into Section 1, Cultivating Psychological Power.
We really have to start this journey inward. Because honestly, before you can influence anyone else, you've got to master your relationship with yourself, right? Every ounce of psychological power you have comes from the inside. To build that power, you first have to strengthen your personal commitment to yourself. That means digging deep, figuring out who you truly are, and facing some honest truths instead of just, lying to yourself. Second, you've got to focus on relentless progress. Powerful people do not waste their time trying to rewrite history or agonizing over that one terrible meeting. They extract the lesson, they learn from the failure, and they relentlessly look forward. And finally, your power is projected outward through positive, powerful language. Just taking a breath, slowing down, thinking carefully, and intentionally choosing positive words communicates an undeniable psychological strength.
Moving right along to Section 2, Neuroplasticity and Habit Loops.
Having that powerful mindset is an awesome start, but we actually need to encode it into our daily actions. Looking at the work of researcher Charles Duhigg, we see that our brains literally function on a continuous habit loop. It works like this: cue, routine, and reward. Think about it. Your phone buzzes. That's the cue. You check it immediately. That's the routine. And boom, you get a tiny hit of dopamine, the reward. We are constantly forming and reinforcing neurological pathways through this exact process. Whether it's how we react to stress or how we talk to our coworkers, our brains automate these behaviors just to save precious cognitive energy.
But what's truly wild here is how these tiny wins snowball into massive life changes. Digg's research reveals that sticking to good habits actually strengthens your willpower. You can treat it almost exactly like a physical muscle. When you experience a small win, no matter how insignificant it seems, you're reinforcing a successful neurological loop. That continuous pattern fuels your willpower and builds even more successful routines, which lets you reshape your entire life, literally one tiny habit at a time. It's proof that you don't need some overnight dramatic transformation. You just need consistent, small victories.
All right, Section 3, Building Mental Fitness.
Building on those neurological pathways we just talked about, we have to establish a strong baseline of mental fitness. Just like physical habits, emotional regulation is a habit we can actively train. Mental fitness is exactly like working out at a physical gym. It takes continuous, deliberate effort to manage your emotions. It's basically your brain's capacity to cope with negative feelings so they don't go and derail your reputation, your relationships, or your long-term goals. And one of the absolutely most powerful workouts for mental fitness is surprisingly simple yet shockingly difficult for high achievers: self-compassion.
According to research by Dr. Kristen Neff and Dr. Jamil Zaki, true self-compassion comes down to 3 very specific steps. First step is mindful awareness. That's just acknowledging that you're struggling without trying to push it down or suppress it. Second is recognizing common humanity. That's understanding that suffering and failure don't make you some weird exception, they make you human. And third is goodwill. This is essentially reversing the golden rule. It means extending the exact same grace and kindness to yourself that you would readily offer to a good friend. If your best friend bombed a huge presentation, you wouldn't call them worthless, right? You'd encourage them. Well, you've got to do the exact same thing for yourself.
Which brings us to Section 4, Positive Psychology Interventions.
This is where the science of mental fitness gets super actionable through what we call PPIs, or positive psychology interventions. The research points to some highly specific, evidence-based practices here. For instance, the 3 good things gratitude journaling exercise creates these robust boosts in your overall well-being.
But, and this is key, the research clearly shows that these gains will fade away unless the practice becomes a habit over time. Other incredibly effective interventions include strength spotting, which means identifying your core values in action or VIA character strengths and actively finding totally new ways to use them, along with loving-kindness meditation, which literally generates upward spirals of positive emotions.
Now, all of these practices tap into Dr. Barbara Fredrickson's broaden and build theory. You see, positive emotions don't just temporarily make us feel warm and fuzzy, they actually expand our momentary thought-action repertoires. To put that in plain English, when you experience joy, gratitude, or curiosity, it literally broadens your attention and enhances your cognitive flexibility right there in the moment. Over time, those broadened states progressively build lasting psychological resources. So a fleeting moment of gratitude today is actively building your long-term resilience and social connectedness for tomorrow.
And just to show that these tools are grounded in rigorous science, we rely on the 3 circles of evidence-based clinical practice. We aren't just guessing here, guys. True evidence-based practice sits right at the intersection of the best available research evidence, the clinician's expertise, and the patient's individual values and preferences. This 3-legged stool ensures we're delivering ESTs, or empirically supported treatments. Operating at this intersection guarantees that the psychological tools we're using are heavily validated by science and at the same time deeply personalized to you. Okay, zooming out a bit for Section 5, Intellectual Humility and Resilience. Now we're stepping out into society. How do we protect ourselves in this complex, high-stress information environment we live in? It all starts with a vital concept called intellectual humility. In an era that is completely saturated with fake news and polarizing algorithms, you'd probably think the best defense is just rigid, blind skepticism. But the science shows the real protective factor is actually intellectual humility. And this isn't about lacking confidence at all. It's the active, totally honest recognition of the limits of your own knowledge.
Think about it for a second. Who is easier to fool? The person who walks around thinking they know absolutely everything, or the person who pauses to double-check the facts? This specific trait acts as an incredibly robust psychological shield. By acknowledging that you don't know everything, you actually gain far better metacognitive insight and much sharper discernment against fake news and pseudoscience. It lets you accurately judge your own cognitive processes, which makes you much harder to manipulate and way more resilient to all the chaotic noise out there in the digital world.
And finally, Section 6, the science of empathy.
Here, we look completely outward at how we interact with and relate to others. This is really the ultimate application of our psychological power. Dr. Jamil Zaki's extensive research breaks empathy down into 3 very distinct types. You've got emotional empathy, which is literally taking on and feeling the emotions of other people. Then there's cognitive empathy, which is the ability to sort of travel into someone else's perspective and understand how the world looks to them. And finally, empathic concern, which is that compassionate desire to actively help other people thrive. Now, I really want you to pay close attention here, because there's a massive breakthrough in empathy science. We've all heard the advice about perspective taking, imagining walking a mile in someone else's shoes. Well, it turns out that actually fails quite often. If I imagine how I would feel in your shoes, I am mostly just projecting my own biases onto you. The scientifically superior alternative is called perspective getting. This means directly asking someone about their experience and actively listening to them. You do this using a technique called looping to understand, where you literally paraphrase what they just said and sincerely ask what you missed, repeating that loop until both of you are completely aligned. In a highly polarized world, this changes absolutely everything. The research reveals that when you take the time to genuinely listen to someone you strongly disagree with first, and you communicate with real compassion, it makes that person feel understood and connected. And shockingly, it actually makes them way more open to being convinced by your perspective later. Why? Because when people feel truly heard, their psychological defenses just drop. Empathy is absolutely not a weakness. It's a profound, highly strategic tool for human connection.
And as we try to forge these connections out in the world, we have to actively defeat cynicism. People often think cynics are the wise ones, the ones who see the harsh, hidden truth of reality. But science tells us the exact opposite. Cynicism is actually a cognitive bias. It's a lazy assumption of ill intent that literally harms your physical health and even lowers your performance on cognitive tests. So instead, we should cultivate earned trust. By taking small leaps of faith, like say giving a coworker the benefit of the doubt on a missed deadline, they very often step up to meet our positive expectations,
And that creates a far more powerful, connected life for everyone involved.
So as we conclude this explainer, I really want you to ask yourself, how are you going to use this inside-out toolkit to master your mind today? You've now got the evidence-based strategies to build your willpower, implement positive psychology, shield your mind with intellectual humility, and connect with profound empathy. The science is all right there. The rest is completely up to you. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe.